Welcome. I'm Rob Hartz. We're at Spectacle Pond in Littleton, Massachusetts. I'm with the author John Hanson Mitchell. And Johnny, welcome to our house, and thank you for coming by today to talk about you as an author of how many books?
Gee, 10
books, 10, 11 books, and many articles in Audubon and other places.
Yes.
A nature writer, historian, and probably an artist, I'd say.
Artist?
Yeah, I made that up, but you can argue that.
not really an artist.
Gardener. You're a gardener.
Yes, groundskeeper, gardener,
Groundskeeper,
writer.
okay.
That's what, yeah.
All right. So anyway, this is a man who has his hand in nature, and we honor that, and we want to hear more about your writing. We want to hear some discussion about the pond, which is right behind us, Spectacle Pond, and also we really want to touch on your one book that is Ceremonial Time, which speaks to 10,000 years? 15,000 years of history in the Scratch Flats, which is just down the road. So those are the major themes we'll discover.
Yeah.
We'll talk about today. So let me start with you as an author. So you have an upcoming book. What is the title of that book?
Well, the most recent is called Legends of the Common Stream, and it's actually it's about worldwide myths and legends that relate to nature. But I use the Beaver Brook, which is
near your home. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the eastern boundary of this area, the square mile known as Scratch Flat, and you know all the plants and animals of that stream or any wild area. 100 years ago, you know, for example, 100 years ago, you see a bear. The native people say they see a bear. The bear is loaded with legends. I mean, they're very close to human beings in worldwide mythology. Or the white-tailed deer. You know, all throughout world history, the white-tailed deer, well, in the northern hemisphere at least, the white-tailed deer, it's loaded with symbolism.
So you're telling these stories in Legends of the Common Stream.
My argument in the book is that all this symbolic weight that these animals and plants carry connected the human beings to nature. And that's all gone now. You see a white-tailed deer, you don't know that it's all tied up with Christian mythology, you know. Right. You see a bear.
We're missing the story then, the myths and stories behind what that symbol means.
Myths and legends were, you know, as far as natural history is concerned, we're all loaded with symbolism.
Right.
The kingfisher, you know.
Well, a lot of those come from Native American stories, but I guess also European stories.
Well, Native American, Eastern, East, you know, the fox in Japanese culture, the fox kitsune, major figure. Major.
Right.
The bear is really one of the most unifying of the mammals.
Right.
You know, and you know, the frogs.
Really? I wouldn't have thought of frogs.
Legends in China and Japan and biblical times. And of course, the Frog Prince and all, you know, I mean, yeah, it's all there, and it's all on Beaver Brook. If you
right out the back door, you can find these.
You find frogs, snakes, right? Snakes.
That's a big one. Very good.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting from this is, because you think about humanity over time, as you've written in Ceremonial Time, is intertwined with the animals and the stories about the animals, and there seems to be this gap now where we've forgotten the myths, and you're going to fill that gap by your book, Legends of the Common Stream.
Right.
Beautiful. That is great.
Yeah.
What are you working on now?
Well, unfortunately, I'm working on climate change. But the thing is, you know, a lot of what I've written about in the past has to do with gardens, and I have a big garden. When I first came here, I mean, I kind of always, not always, but I spent time in Europe and got interested in gardens there, and I came home and decided I thought I'd like to have a garden. I got some land, and right away I dug in. So the world, as we know, right, is falling apart.
Some would say very rapidly.
We've got these rising tides. I mean, because it's seemingly slow, nobody's really worked up about it.
Right.
But climate change is one of these periods in world history that is actually geologic in nature. In other words, it's going to reshape the landforms. It's going to reshape culture. Not, it's 2030 is when it starts to really hit. I mean, It's bad now.
But we're going to see much more.
Right now, what is it? Flagstaff is burning. And so, how you live with that? And there's this phenomenon known as climate anxiety that people are on.
Well, yeah, the therapist offices are full.
Yeah, everybody knows the world is falling apart. So what you can do, you can take political action, and you should, and all that. But as far as finding peace,
right,
internal peace, it's in the garden. The garden as sanctuary, and that was a historical phenomenon throughout. With the development of civilization,
right,
people established gardens, ornamental gardens, not agriculture, ornamental gardens to escape reality.
Really,
and there are even pre-agricultural. There were sacred groves. There were wild places that. People would go and honor.
Right.
So my argument is my garden, for me personally, and by extension everybody else, if you can get to green space, if you can and there are all these scientific studies coming out on the efficacy of exposure to green.
Right.
The color green and these, what do they call them, phytocins. Phyto something that is released by tree. Tree. So,
yeah, and so basically you're talking about well-being by being exposed to nature.
Yeah.
Does that, I mean, I can see from an individual or a small group would benefit from that, particularly if you have wealth and space, which not everyone has.
Helps.
Would that be considered a retreat from the problems of today, or is it more of a?
That's a very good question. You could look at it that way.
Yeah.
And this book is not a call for inaction at all.
Okay.
But I'm not the only one who thinks this way. I see gardening as kind of existential act. This what we should do is make this connection with land, dig, hand tools.
Hand tools.
Hand tools. No machines.
Okay. We have to use the rake and not the
contact. The Thoreau's cry, contact.
Meaning touching the soil.
Touching the earth and exposure to the sky, exposure to plants. And the other thing is that you plant a tree. Trees absorb carbon, but so do all plants.
That's true. So we're making a difference.
You're making a
just
statement.
By planting trees and saving trees.
It's a statement. The garden is a statement. In a way, it's an anti-capitalist statement.
In what way is it anti-capitalist?
Because you're dealing with your own ground, your own interaction with earth, air, and sky. It's not begetting and spending. You waste our. What's that line?
Right. It's organic. It is returning to the earth. It is. There is no profit in it.
No profit.
In terms of
there's no financial profit.
Financial profit, exactly.
In fact, it's financial loss.
Yeah.
Well, you can eat it. I mean, you can eat food from the garden, but that's not a loss.
Well, that raises again the question of environmental inequality and okay, you've got a beautiful garden, but if you were in another neighborhood in the city, what would you advise people that don't have that ready access?
Part of the book is the story of Mr. Cooper's garden.
Mr. Cooper is who?
Mr. Cooper was a black man who came up from the South in the 30s, I think.
To Littleton?
No, he was in Boston.
In Boston.
forgotten, Mattapan, I think.
In Mattapan.
That part, you know. And Mr. Cooper, I think he was a social worker or something. Anyway, there's an empty lot near his house, just ruined place, and he put a garden in there. Mm-hmm. And he planted some, you know, collards and stuff he knew from the south. And then there's a lot more space. And he went around and to his neighbors, he'd say, the older men, these were, why don't you come out and take a plot of land? Yeah, start cultivating something. And they said, hell no.
Right.
I turned enough turnips.
Oh, yeah. So they escaped the South because that
but
was...
they came out one by one, and pretty soon he had this group of gardeners right in the worst part of Boston, right?
Right. The gardens are now right in the center.
Boston Urban Gardeners. You ever heard of that group?
Yeah.
Well, that's Mr. Cooper's work.
That is Mr. Cooper. Did you write about him?
Well, I've written in essays.
Essays about
yeah,
him.
He won an award because of...
So he is one of your heroes, I would say.
Mr. Cooper, well, yeah, he was.
Because he took action.
He took a garden.
He took a garden.
And
that makes a statement,
as but you know, see, you don't even need to own land.
Yeah. Okay.
You can. Well, he didn't own that. He didn't own that.
Right.
This is happening throughout, by the way. You know, there's this neighborhood in it's in a Puerto Rican district in New York. This was years ago, and the same thing happened.
Right.
And then the developers came along, said, "Look, this was our land. Get off."
You squatters. Yeah.
Big fight.
I'll bet.
I think they won some rights. I don't think they won the whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, you don't need land, but you also, just the idea of parks, you know, Eliot and the green, you know, the Emerald Necklace, and
remind us of who Eliot is.
Well, he was a trustees of reservations.
Okay.
Yeah, and Olmsted.
Frederick Olmsted was
Frederick Law Olmsted,
right.
And this whole movement back then, around the 1880s, 1890s, of the green, restoring parks for space, air, and light, was, you know, get people out. Right. Of those dark warrens and into get.
So our cities were a lot darker than they are today.
Horrible, horrible.
And so in that sense, we can have some sense of optimism that the cities have improved.
Yeah, and land, you know, back to the land, but not, you know, you can survive off the land too. But I mean, this is just exposure or ability to get to green space.
Okay.
And it's got all these scientific studies that are recently coming out. You know, what's it called? I've forgotten the Japanese term. I can't remember the term, but they have this idea of forest bathing, forest bath.
Yes, forest bath.
Forest bath, and this is not. You're not running. You're not doing exercise or workout. This is just walk.
Okay. And what does one gain from the forest bath?
Peace of mind. Okay. But it's chemical. There's these chemicals, especially apparently in pine forests. I wish I had the book here. These I can't remember what they're called, but trees give this off. Yeah. And after an hour or so of breathing this chemical in, it reduces cortisol levels, which are what causes anxiety, and there are other benefits. I can't remember them all. But